got a message to them. I don't know whether this will be allowed to cap in, but what?
Alright guys, my name's Billy MacKenzie from Scotland, and you're watching 5 Minutes with Fletch.
You obviously like running Michelins, but you've got a message to them. I don't know whether this will be allowed to cap in, but what have you got to say about the new StarCross 6?
Look, I think it's rider preference. They're a really good tyre. They last a long time. I was testing them a lot this year, but Michelin guys, I'm sorry, I just prefer your StarCross 5, and I know you don't make them anymore, so if you have any in stock, Michelin, if in that factory somewhere in the back, in the corner, you have a stack of 120 StarCross 5 19-inch rims, please send them my way. Get hold of Fletch, talk to Doc Wald, and just put a package together for me.
So like, how was it making your debut in the noughties, and like your pro debut in the noughties, and still be racing now? How much of a toll has that taken on your body?
Well, any motocross guy will tell you that it does come with a lot of injuries, and it's quite tough. I've been quite lucky in my career not to have any major injuries, but you know, my debut was actually in '99, so just before the noughties. I was 15 riding a 125 Yamaha, and I entered the German Grand Prix.
You used to be able to, it's just 125, isn't it? You can race.
We had 3 classes back then. We had 125, 250 and 500, so the 125 World Championship would be just a completely separate race, so you wouldn't even have the 250s there. So
I remember I'm watching Motivations, and they're like, I watched the 94 one when I first watched it, and then I watched the 125 and I'm like, they're not clash rounds.
No.
They were all different.
Yeah, they'd all go like different places. It was it was kind of crazy, and then they sort of condensed it all and put MX1, MX2, and then they got rid of the 500 class. They called that MX3, and it wasn't even like it wasn't even part of the same race. Like, you'd have MX1, MX2, and that would be it. But I made my debut in '99, and I was a schoolboy champion at the time, and I was the youngest ever qualifier in the world when I was 15. It only lasted a couple of months, I think, because Kevin Strybos came and beat me. But I was the youngest guy ever to qualify for a Grand Prix when I was 15.
Kevin Strybos, he retired like last year, but he's so young. He was 18 in 2004. How old were you then?
In 2004? God, well, I was 15 in '99, so add it up, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I would have been 20, I think.
So you're 2 years older than him, so...
I don't think I'm that much older than him, to be honest. I don't know, who cares about the numbers? But yeah, Strybos was the young guy back then. I was the young guy from Britain, he was the young guy from Belgium. But yeah, you're right, man. Like, you know, I'm almost 40, I'll be 40 next year. And I'm so happy that there's vets races now. Because it's so cool, man. Like, all the proper riders from back in the day, the ones that you've been watching, the 94s, everywhere, we're all just so glad that we can go and race each other again, you know, because we're not as crazy as we used to be.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're crazier, who knows, but we're safer on the track, we've got more experience, and we just enjoy riding the bike. You know, racing's racing, we're all good at it, but ultimately I think everyone just enjoys riding their bike because our body feels better after riding the bike. It's just like, we can't really find the same physical workout that you get from riding a motocross bike anywhere else. And because we're already good at it, because we've been learning and teaching ourselves from when we were 6 years old, it's just a natural thing. And so it's almost like our body needs it. And to have vets races and to be able to go and hang out with all your old buddies that used to race against, I think it's just such a cool thing.
So there are obviously 3 different types of motocross tracks you can have. There's hard pack, sand, and then just normal mud.
Yeah.
What's your favourite? What are you the best in? And what would you go in having the least confidence in riding?
That's such a good question, Fletch. I used to love riding sand because in the sand you can get in a flow and your heart rate. See if you get your heart rate in tune with all the sort of bumps on the track. It's my favourite, and plus you can go much faster on a sand track with less risk. So I always felt comfortable if I crashed in sand, I'd be able to get back up and go. So I would push harder, way harder in sand.
As long as it's not, like when you get older, it's nicer because more people have been riding it. But when you're the first down, like 60s and 80s, you're like, you don't want to race that hard in the first race because normally beautifully flat.
Yeah.
Like on the second day, normally, when I go to the MX Nationals, when I went to Hawkston for the final round, they flattened it, and the amount of kids that came back in after practice with just half the helmet clean, the other half just covered in sand.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, but it's got hurt though. It's like flat sand, going the speed that they're now going, and just doing this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be deep sand. I used to love going to Holland. Like, I used to ride down the beach a lot. We used to have a big military of defence, like, sand pit that I used to go ride, like, through the trees, and it was bottomless sand, you know. So I got really confident riding sand in those places because I could really push myself. Plus, I was riding a 250F, and so I would wring its neck, you know. Like, I was actually trying to go faster than the bike would let me. So, to answer your question, sand's my favourite. Hard pack, I'm not as, I can ride it, and I learned to ride it because we all have to as as professional motocross athletes. So you have to adapt and learn everything. But it was always the French, the Italians, and the Spanish riders that were so fast on that stuff because clearly they're riding it every day, and they had such good feeling with the tyres that I really didn't. And it took me a while to learn that, and I wasn't always confident on hard pack. And in the mud races, you know, mud's fine. Like Japan, you could call that mud. It wasn't sand, it wasn't hard pack. So, you know, I liked it when you had a lot of traction, when you could hit the ruts and the berms like really hard and it wouldn't give out. And I used to like that aggressive feel. Like I used to ride aggressive. Like the French, the Italians, they used to be really precise and smooth and nice on all this hard pack sort of edgy terrain. But when we got to places like Japan, or places that I could really physically like throw that bike into the corners and out, that's when I rode my best. So I was probably most confident on the mud. I enjoyed the sand, and I was not really that comfortable with hard pack.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers, Fletch. Thanks very much.